Hello! New features here for Steve's Factory Manager. So previously, 2 days ago, we got the Redstone Emitters, which, well, they are quite cool. But something else that is also cool are the Redstone Receivers, which are new for today. But that's not the only thing. We have some new commands as well, and we have some changes to how the Machine Inventory Manager works with Redstone. So previously, you could do this, like trigger the Machine Inventory Manager, but that's not possible anymore. So you can't trigger it directly with Redstone like this. That has been removed, which will break some machines, and I'm sorry for that, but I think the new way it works makes much more sense, because we're going to use these receivers instead. So you can still trigger the whole machine with Redstone. You can't just do it directly to the manager itself, so we can basically do that, or even that. So let's do it like that, and I'm going to add the emitter there, and then we have the receiver there, and then the Machine Inventory Manager here in the middle, like so. Okay, so let's create a trigger. So, well, previously you hooked it directly to the manager. Now we get an extra menu here where we select the Redstone Receiver, so I'm going to do that, and then I can just leave these things by the default value, and these are exactly the same as they used to be. Right, create Redstone emitter like so, and as you saw, we have the condition here. I will go through them in just a few minutes, like that. So on high pulse and an emitter here, and I'm going to select that one, and what I want to do here is toggle them. So this will toggle back and forth every time the trigger is being triggered, and it will do that when I do that. So it's, yeah, I know the machines you might have built will be a bit broken, but you're not going to have to do too much of a difference. Or, wow, there you go. It's not connecting like that, but there you go. So each time it goes on, it's going to trigger that. So, well, we can even do that. There you go. So yeah, so you have to modify your setups a bit, and I'm sorry for that, but I think in the long run this will be much better, because obviously you can do something like that, and then we select that one, and like that. And of course we can do even more things. I'll just select them both, and require one target. This should be fairly easy to understand. We flip that, it's going to toggle. We flip this, it will toggle. So it doesn't matter which one we flip. When one of these are turned on, then it will trigger. There you go. And then we can do require all, which should also be perfectly fine. So now that works, because this is on and this is triggered, and that also works, but this doesn't, because, well, now both aren't on. So it's like the sides when we have pulses. So you don't need pulses for all of these at the same time, but you need all of them to be on and one to just pulse. So that one is on, and now this pulses. So that's fine. And we can see that easily here. Now when we don't have that, well, this is on, that's on, now it's going back and forth there, now it's not working. So these requires all are a bit different from what you might expect, but this implementation works much better than doing it, well, forcing you to pulse them all at the same time. Okay, so the next one is run a shared command once, which, well, it's probably a bit odd. It's not going to be too useful in the, well, most common setups, but in some setups it's going to be fairly useful actually. So what I'm going to set up to show this is requires all here. So we require all the sides of south and east. So those two sides there. This is south, that's east. So this is obviously not going to be enough. But what I could do is this. And it just flipped. So what happened here? Yeah, alright, it's flipping back and forth. Sorry, I didn't reconnect that. There you go. That's easy to see. So what is happening here is we need south, we need east. Here's south, here's east. Fine. So what we do is we observe these two blocks as if they would be one. So we sort of merge everything together. So we have the required signal together here. If we do requires all, it wouldn't work, because then, well, we don't have a signal there and we don't have a signal there, but we do have a signal together on all the required sides. Another way we can do it is if we go back here, so I'm just going to select them all and if any instead, and then I'm going to select a signal strength of 15 like that. Like so. So now we require a strength of 15. How do we do that? Well, we can do it like that. There you go, it's flipping. So now we're adding 14 to 14, which is 28, but it's capped at 15, so it's counted as a strength of 15. So is this like requires all? Well, of course not. There you go. This managed to get this signal of 15 on its own, so it's totally fine. However, something like this is not enough. If we do it like that, and we do it like that, if you see in the distance there, it's not going to flip. Why is that the case? Well, these are side dependent. So we get a signal strength of 14 here, we get a signal strength of 14 there. If we merge that together, that means that on the west, the north, the top and the bottom side, we have a signal strength of 0, and on the east and south sides, we do have a signal strength of 14. Is that enough for our requirement? Well, let's take a look. So any side is fine, but we need a strength of 15. We didn't get that at any of these sides, so therefore, well, it's not a valid trigger. But of course, if we do it there, then these are merged, so we get 28, which will count as 15, which is totally fine. So that's that part. But we do have more things. So if I just, yeah, let's just remove that. And I can keep that there. Okay, so if we make a blank trigger here, so I'm just going to use it in this mode, and let's get the redstone condition instead. There you go. So it looks like a condition in every sense that we have two outputs here, true and false, we have the input there, and then we have a few menus to define what we're doing here. And apart from a few naming things, it looks pretty much the same as what we had for the redstone trigger. We have strengths, we have sides, and we have some nodes apparently. And the strength looks like this, and the size looks like it exactly like before. However, nodes are redstone emitters and redstone receivers. So we have both of them. So we can make conditions for both. So how does this work exactly? Well, a redstone node, which is an emitter or a receiver, have all strength on their sides. On their different sides, they have a strength of 0 to 15. If we work with a receiver, a strength is basically how much redstone, well, how strong the redstone signal going to it is. So that's, well, a strength of 14 on that side, and a strength of 15 on that side, and a strength of 0 on all the other sides. If we take a look on a redstone emitter, however, it's not the power of the signal going in, it's the power it's emitting at that specific side. So currently all its strengths are at 0, but if we toggle it to 15, then it will all be 15, and if you set it to something else, it will obviously have those values. So a side of the specific strength works perfectly fine for both the receivers there and emitters there, but it's defined differently. Receivers, obviously the signal in, emitters, the signal out. So when we look in a condition, the only thing we care about is actually this strength of a side. How that is defined obviously depends on what we have selected. So let's start with a receiver here. I can do, well, like any side here, and if we do it like this, it's going to work pretty much the same as as if we had a redstone trigger and just used the on high signal. So why would we even use this? Well, of course we could do something like this, for instance. An input there, so we grab the items according to some specific rule, and then depending on the result, we do different things. So now we're putting things in between the trigger and the condition, and that's going to give us any reason to actually not put everything in the trigger. Or another reason would be to have multiple ones, of course, where you detect different things, and then you chain them together. So you do quite a lot here, just detecting the signals. And apart from well, some naming things. Like I said, the menus are exactly the same. So you just define the size exactly like you did in the redstone trigger. And you define the strength in the same way. And if you have multiple things selected, it's working exactly the same way. Hang on a sec. So now I have redstone emitters and receivers selected at the same time. Well, that's totally fine. Like I said, these conditions just care about the strength of the specific sides. Obviously, that is defined differently for different type of blocks, but apart from that, it's not going to bother actually. So what we could do here is, well, make sure that maybe we have a signal here, and maybe we make sure that we have a signal there as well. So I don't even know what this is set to anymore. Okay, so let's clean up a bit. There we go. So you can do it like that. So this is just going to, well, actually be annoying. There we go. So now that's just going to flip back and forth no matter what we have there. And then I'm going to add this thing there. And, well, just to know exactly where it is, I can put it over there. Oops, sorry. There you go. So now I can just check that the one with the higher Y value is the one I want. And then what we can do is create a trigger for the condition here. And now what I'm going to listen for is the redstone emitter, that is the bottom one, not that one. And if any of these are true, then it's fine. And then what I want to do is create a emitter here, and that emitter is going to select the one on top there and set it to 15. And we can select, well, send a pulse here for let's see, 1 second. That's fine. There you go. So basically what this is going to do now is it's sort of a very small mini game here. Alright, I set it up wrong. Actually, what I want to do is have this trigger here selected there. There you go. Okay, so now we have a trigger going into the condition, going into emitter, but we also have this part here. So this part will always just flip that one back and forth, as you can see. But then, if we flip this lever, the trigger will be triggered, it will check the condition, and maybe output something with the emitter. And what is this checking for? Well, if the signal is on here. So if I flip it now, nothing happens. If I flip it now, nothing happens. If I flip it when the signal is high, nothing happens. There you go. Alright, yeah, I mixed up which direction was on and off. So now it's actually on. There you go. So, there you go. So it blinks like that. So a very small mini game where you're trying to flip the lever if you actually know which direction is on or off. And you're trying to do that when the signal is on. And the signal is obviously defined using this trigger. And now we can do it like that. So, very useful I think these conditions are. You can select trigger, well, you can obviously use triggers as well, but in the conditions you can use the receivers and the emitters, or a combination of the two. And well, now we're just looking for any of the sides to be on with a signal to 1 to 15. But we can obviously say, alright, if the bottom side has a signal strength of exactly 4, then I want to do something specific. So if we're emitting a signal strength to the bottom for with a signal strength of 4, then what should we do? And maybe you want to make sure that something else is the case, or maybe if it's false. So if it's false, then we might want to make sure that the signal strength of like any of the ups or south sides are, you know, 11 to 15. Yeah, you can do a ton of things with these. So I think they will allow you to make quite cool systems there. So I hope you have fun with those. And before I end here, I'm just going to show a little thing I built, maybe to give some inspiration here. So it's a very simple binary counter. So it's counting from 0 to 15. So there we go, 14, 15, and then goes back 0, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So it's just binary there. And if we take a look here, it looks like this. This is just me showing weird things. So this has no part of the whole thing, but the thing there to the left is what we're going to look for. And what we have here is a trigger, then an emitter. The emitter is toggling the first bit. Then we check the first bit. If the first bit on any side has a signal, then nothing happens. But if that's not the case, then we want to toggle the second one. Then we check the second one, toggle the third, check the third, and toggles the fourth. So it's basically just counting up. Obviously, I'm not using the redstone signals for anything. I'm actually using this sort of as indicators, as lamps if you wish. Even though they don't emit any light, they change texture, and we get a quite nice display like that. But it's obviously just binary, nothing, no images or anything. But yeah, just a small example of what you can do here using the conditions for the emitters. But we've also seen examples where we use the conditions for the other things, the receivers, and you can also use the receivers in the trigger command. So that's going to be very useful, I believe. I built some setups that when I wanted to be able to do that. And one more time I can take it that you can't do this anymore. But I think that should be fairly apparent, because when you create a trigger here, if you just create it to redstone control, like that, if you connect it to something, you will get an error. It will say no receiver selected, so it should be fairly obvious. You also have another menu here, and in this menu you can't see the manager. So I think it should be fairly obvious, but remember, you can't connect it directly to the manager. And I'm sorry if I broke something too bad. It should be fairly easy to fix. So that's pretty much it for now. More features will come later, but that's it. Good luck.